Hey gang, today I wanted to talk to you about the brand new Techmarine class in Space Marine 2, and I have with me Hazeman, who is a Space Marine 2 content creator and siege mode enjoyer.
My name's Hayes, and as Froggy mentioned, I play a lot of Space Marine 2, and I'm pretty obsessed with siege mode.
So let's start off with any perks that you think sound good for siege. We've seen them all now in the post that was posted today. Do you have any that you really like?
Yeah, so I actually think that Techmarine is going to be really useful in Siege. It's going to depend on a few things, which we'll have to test a lot when the PTS comes out. But there's quite a few perks that catch the eye when it comes to Siege. One of the biggest challenges you've got with pushing is that the bosses take no damage. So things like Auspex or vulnerability from perfect parries and blocks make a massive difference. They're the only thing that lets you kill bosses beyond like wave 30. So Techmarine having about 4 or 5 different perks that increase the damage that things take or increase your own damage sounds really promising for what you can do. So a couple perks that really stand out for this are Methodical Destruction. Enemies damaged by equipment take 25% more damage for 10 seconds. And I think Designated Target. Enemies hit by a server gun take 15% more damage for 10 seconds. Those two together being 40%, that could be a massive damage buff, or it could be pretty mediocre, depending on how they choose to implement this. Because with your specs, the way it's calculated, it's good, but the damage resistance from later waves counters it. But with, say, the games in a perfect block or parry damage vulnerability increase, that bypasses the waves damage resistance stacking. So if it works like that, it's going to have a major effect. It's going to make bosses way more killable in the really high waves.
I did like Methodical Destruction. It does sound really nice, but it does kind of, if you are just using melter bombs, which I think is what a lot of people do generally when they play, they already kind of one-shot big guys. So I don't know how useful that will be, because it'll still one-shot them, but it'll just be an overkill. And then with Designated Target, I really like that one as well. Anything that makes me do less work to kill things is amazing. So giving the servo gun an extra 15% more damage for 10 seconds is amazing to me.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. The thing you said about the melter is true as well. For most enemies, the melter's just going to delete them. I think at this point, the main problem with doing, like, again, my perspectives from pushing Siege as like far as you can, where the damage resistances are really high. The only problem you have in the game is killing bosses. Everything else is manageable. So it's only really bosses that those big damage increase perks are going to make a big difference for, I think.
How do you feel about Lethal Perimeter? I was on the fence about it because I'm not sure if you can put a zone yourself down or if it's just an automatic zone placement. Do you think that would be useful at all?
I'm assuming Lethal Perimeter is going to work like the Auspex. Like you're going to place a zone on the floor and it's going to stay there, and anything that's in there is just going to get beamed down by a turret. But then, on the other hand, Omnissiah's Fury is probably the perk that I'm most intrigued by, because applying burn, we all know how crazy burn's damage is, and if you can add that in addition to like your gun strikes and your enhanced range damage, it could be insane.
Yeah. Fire damage in Space Marine 2 is absolutely goated. It's great. So then, those are the normal perks, and then looking at the prestige ones, there are 7 prestige perks that we've now seen from today's post, but 4 of them are essentially just copy and pasted from other classes. So you have Chained Headshots, which is Acuity from TAC. You have Defensive Stance, which is Scramble Targeting from Assault, Bulwark, and Heavy. And then you have the Stim Boost, which is just Resilience from TAC and Bulwark. And then you have Blast Radius, which is the material upgrade from Sniper. So they're not super new, but do you want to talk about the new ones a little bit? Are they a bit more interesting?
Yeah, they're definitely interesting. So the 3 new ones, you've got Revive Surge, which people have kind of been memeing on. I won't lie, when I read it at first as well, I was a bit like, this is a bit useless. So it's 15% increased ability recharge for 10 seconds after reviving someone. Now, 15% faster ability recharge for 10 seconds is not going to go very far for a lot of classes. If you want to put numbers to it, an Assault's ground pound is a 40-second CD. So you're effectively having 15% quicker for 10 seconds is like saving a second and a half on a 40-second recharge, only when you res someone. So it's kind of useless. Like, this one's going to need a lot of tweaking or replacing, in my opinion. The next one is Volatile Sentry. This one's a big question mark as well, because it applies to the damage that your sentry does when it detonates after getting killed, I presume. I wonder if it's going to go off when it runs out of ammo. I'm not sure, but it'll all depend on what the base damage on the explosion is. That could end up being like an insane talent, because if they make the base damage like a melter bomb, having 40% on top is going to be huge. And then probably the coolest prestige perk, or definitely the coolest prestige perk, is Furious Gunstrike. After using Gunstrike, melee damage increases by 25% for 5 seconds. This is a really awesome perk, simply because the Techmarine can Gunstrike during melee combos. So as you're like blasting things in the face with your Omnissiah axe, you'll be picking up 25% damage buffs to your melee damage, whilst getting the damage from the Gunstrike itself. So I think there's going to be for operations, some really awesome builds that center around that prestige perk. That one's definitely the one that's got my attention most.
Going back to Volatile Sentry, as a tabletop head that I am, it sounds a lot like Deadly Demise, which in my previous video I did ask if we could potentially have Deadly Demise on the Sentry. And if you don't know, in tabletop, it is when a vehicle with that keyword dies, it explodes on a d6 roll, and then anything in its vicinity takes an amount of mortal wounds. That's kind of been confirmed as being a thing, and it's really cool to see that, especially as like a prestige perk that will essentially buff that as a keyword for the Sentry. So I love that.
It was interesting watching your video about the tabletop stuff, because I had no idea how much of the stuff as someone who's never played the tabletop, I had no idea how much of the tabletop rule set, and I don't know what you'd call it, just the moves and the way it works. I had no idea how much of that is actually transferred through to this game, and how you've been able to use tabletop information to kind of predict what was coming. So that's super cool.
Yeah, I don't play a lot of this game, and I do really like this game, but when something new is coming out, like, not even just for this game, like for Darktide, for Warhammer 3, Total War, for Total War 40k, you can kind of guess how things are going to turn out. I have a background in game dev as well, so I kind of understand how, or at least have a more of an understanding of how to turn something like a tabletop game into a video game without making it boring to play. Because obviously if you move something from tabletop like for like to a video game, it's not going to be very fun gameplay. So you do have to alter it. And if you have like studied games and how other games have attempted this, you can kind of make really good estimations on what might turn up and what will probably get sidelined and just not touched on.
Yeah,
so,
you can tell what's going to translate well to an actual game. That's cool. Okay,
cool. So prestige perks, we're happy with those. They sound pretty good. It's a shame that there's 7 of them and 4 of them are just copy pasted, but
that's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're useful, then I don't see why not, because, I mean, do you think you would use all 3 of the new ones, or do you think you'd use, like, maybe 1 of them and then 3 of the copy-paste ones?
Off the top of my head, for Siege, I would probably use... I wouldn't use the Acuity one, because most of your damage is going to come from either Equipment Servo or Grenade Launcher. I wouldn't use Revive Surge either, because it just does nothing. That's a good question. Volatile Sentry is going to depend entirely. So off the top of my head, for Siege, Blast Radius, Stim Boost and Defensive Stance would be really good, because it's reducing the damage you take while you're surrounded, which is going to happen a lot in Siege. Increasing your equipment radius, which again, equipment's like the most essential thing in Siege ever anyway. And also, Stim Boost might synergize with the class's team perk, Battlefield Repairs, where all squad members fully regain their armor and gain 1 additional armor segment when using Medicate Stims. So we've got a couple theories about just dropping using bots entirely and just spamming Stims to keep everyone alive constantly. That might end up being a meta if the sentry's not that good and you don't use reinforced position. So yeah, there's lots of different ways it could go, but to answer your question, Blast Radius, Defensive Stance, Stim Boost, and then either Volatile Sentry or Furious Gunstrike. I think those are going to be my go-tos.
I can see Furious Gunstrike being super useful, because you do get absolutely swarmed. So if you do parry something and you're surrounded by loads of little guys and you get that Gunstrike, then you can just clear everything around you really fast. But yeah, Volatile Sentry will be interesting to see because it just completely depends on the base explosion damage of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I cannot stress how excited I am to mess around with the gunstrike mechanic. Just the fact that you can melee and gunstrike, because gunstrikes have been such a punishing mechanic for so long, to have them not animation lock you, considering most of the time you get locked into a gunstrike, you didn't even try to go for it in the first place. You wanted to just hip fire something in the opposite direction. So to not get punished on that and just be able to free reign your class, I'm so excited to play it. Like, it's by far the biggest thing I'm looking forward to.
If we will carry on with the sentry, I feel like it would be... The sentry is a really good choice to add in, but it could be just a massive fumble depending on the implementation they have decided on for it. It does look kind of concerning in the community post on that video where it does not seem to survive very long. It does seem to have a taunt and take aggro from those mobs around it to attack it, but it doesn't seem to last very long. It doesn't have a lot of health, which was a concern that I did bring up previously because on tabletop it does only have 2 wounds, which is super fragile for a vehicle, but...
Yes. Yeah, the sentry gun is, it's the one of 2 ways that you'd be able to apply Techmarine to Siege that I can think of. The sentry gun's tank ability, and also it's a question of if it's going to respawn. Like, will it respawn between waves? Will it respawn when you go away from a map and come back 15 rounds later, or just 10 rounds later? How much aggro does it generate? Like, there's so many things we need to find out for it, because in an ideal world, it actually doesn't taunt. Because you kind of want the enemies to be focused on you whilst it's standing in the background, just completely beaming everything.
It could just be like, kind of like the opposite of a League tower, or like a tower in Dota, where the enemies are the towers, kind of, even though they move, and they just attack the closest thing. So maybe if the turret's there, they have priority to attack the turret, but if you're in front of the turret, they will just attack you instead, maybe?
I get the feeling that's what it is based off the video we saw earlier, because it looks like the person playing specifically runs behind the sentry to get the Majoris to attack it, and that's kind of how the NPCs treat Cadians and the marine bots that you can buy in Siege. It's basically a proximity thing, and also a damage thing. If you're the one blasting it in the face, it usually turns towards you. You did mention another interesting thing as well when we were talking about volatile sentry, was whether the sentry explodes when it runs out of ammo. I wonder if there will be some sort of like ammo regen that it has, or if you can like bring it ammo to make it so it doesn't run out, or if it just literally explodes when it runs out. That would be quite funny. It would be pretty good, and you could definitely generate strategies around that, especially if it has like lots of damage. You just drag a boss onto it, or specs it, and bang, and it's gone. That would be pretty funny. It is kind of going to be interesting, like you said, how they implement it, because in my eyes, you should be able to repair it, right, as a Techmarine?
Yeah.
That would make sense, would it not? You just, like, if it's on 20% health, in between rounds, you just go back to it and zap it a couple of times, and it's back to 100.
One of the passives that it says you have with your servo arm is repairing it. They have said that it's a passive, but in the pictures we've seen, he does physically attach his servo arm to the turret, so I don't know how mobile you'll be able to be while doing the passive repair, whether you'll only be able to like pistol and not move kind of thing, or unsure how that will work.
Knowing how they word things in this game, by passive, they probably just mean that you don't have to take a perk for it to be a thing. It just means that you have that ability to do it. You're probably just going to have to stand there and interact with it like any other thing in the game, I would assume.
I did hear people like talking about it being like, oh, you'll have to like stop shooting, you'll have to stop attacking and take the actual time to repair this. And like from like obviously like WoW, a passive is just something that happens without you having to stop doing anything. So maybe.
Yeah. Hopefully, just being in proximity to it, you just slowly repair it. That would be really cool. It would kind of feed into the Techmarine fantasy as well of having like a bunch of different things going on. Because it's kind of like the gunstrike being automatic. We were kind of memeing, saying, "Oh, it'd be so cool if the shoulder just pinged gunstrikes whenever you got them for free." And then they actually made it a thing. So you know, we could be hopeful. They've put some pretty cool stuff in so far.
So the other big blaring question mark about Techmarine is the carrying on with the sentry gun, is like the positioning of it. We know that it will spawn in Siege and in Operations, but it will have like random areas, and it can only maybe spawn in like a couple of those places per like wave, potentially, if they respawn every wave. Do you think that'll be an issue?
Yeah, so that's going to be one of the big factors in deciding how you play the Techmarine in siege mode. From what we can what's the
Ascertain.
word, predict. Yeah, from what we can ascertain. Exactly. So the positioning is going to be really important, because the way you push siege mode currently, if you want to get as high as possible, you're beating a timer, not the difficulty. So it's about killing fast, not staying alive. The way you do this currently is you attack enemies as they spawn into the map, because that's when they're dense and you can cleave them, and it's just the highest kill rate, gives you the most pace. If they place the sentry bots really far away from those little areas where they actually physically spawn onto the map, it's going to be sort of useless, because you're not going to be able to stay near it and defend it without losing a bunch of pace on your rounds. So hopefully they put them in some pretty decent positions, or at least like not miles away from the spawns.
I can see that being as like a sort of 50-50 choice of whether to go into the dense spawn with your massively cleaved ominous iron axe, or to stay back with the turret. And then there's also like, we don't actually know the damage, obviously, and we don't know how tanky it is either.
Yeah, exactly. If it takes 2 random hits on a high wave to go down, then that's going to be a problem. I think in terms of its damage and stuff like that, usually NPCs scale really strong. In fact, as far as we can tell in Siege, the ramping damage resistance that enemies get per wave past 15, that doesn't apply to the NPCs. Stuff like a heavy bot in wave 45 can absolutely nuke a terminus down, if you're lucky enough for it to lock on, that is. So I think the damage from the turret is going to be good. Like, something tells me that it's not going to be weak, but the tankiness remains to be seen. No idea. We don't have any other examples to compare that with.
Generally in games, you either get something super high health but low damage, or super high damage and pretty low health. So it's looking towards, they've gone towards that second option with this.
I hope so, because glass cannon's the best way to push. So that's the one I'm interested in.
And then also with the looking back at the reinforced position perk, like that kind of makes it sound like we could have a kind of perma turret situation, maybe, if that's sort of set up right.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's that insane, maybe it does change the strategy, where you sort of fortify a position and wait for the enemies to come to you. If you're killing them that fast, maybe that's, maybe there's ways you can build around that. But yeah, if it's too far from the spawns, it'll be useless for pushes. This could be like a really game-breaking thing for things like farming XP in Siege, though, where people are doing like wave 5 or 10 runs, where you just take a Techmarine, hunker down on a sentry, buy a bot, and they basically clear everything for you. You're just there kind of bonking the bot on the head, repairing it, and that's basically your 5 rounds free done.
But yeah, I mean, that would be great for leveling, to be fair. And like, the game is, 2 years old now? Almost? Year and a bit?
It was September, so about 15 months. We'll round up.
So, like, a lot of people, like, have started playing since, and, like, they haven't been here from the start, and a lot of people will see Techmarine and think, oh, that looks really cool. So maybe having an even faster way to level up will be a bit more, like, welcoming to people who think they're behind, because the game's already been out for, like you said, 15 months. So they'll be able to catch up super fast. Kind of like a catch-up mechanic by accident.
It's definitely a concern for us, like, more seasoned players, that the game is hard to get into in terms of the time investment on leveling. So yeah, if this could trivialize leveling, that would actually be a really subtle but big win, for sure.
So carrying on from the sentry gun, looking at the servo gun, it does look like it could be pretty useful, and obviously it has the auto gun strike as well, and it seems to be fully AI aimed as well, with the ugly little reticule.
Yeah.
So this is the forge bolter that's bolted onto your backpack. I quite like how this is looking. I predicted it to have a lot of crowd control in terms of like stagger and maybe some sort of like stun as well. It has been confirmed to have the stagger, and with the ability button as well, doing that like high burst machine gun fire, it does look really nice. It looks really useful.
Yeah, for sure. There's it's funny that you mentioned stagger. There's actually a few different ways that it could apply that, because the servo gun's going to act in 2 ways, right? Firstly, it's going to perform your gun strikes, and it's also, when you actually activate your ability key, it's going to auto lock and shoot stuff. So gun strikes, we know stagger. So that's a win. The ability, it was one-shotting the Minoris in the video, so we're going to have to wait and find out how that works against stuff like Majoris or Extremis. But also, you can change the way its ammo type works, so that might also change the level of stagger. You can change it to do precision enhancement, target single dangerous enemies and fires powerful precision shots, or plasma enhancement, fires exploding plasma projectiles. Exploding plasma projectiles makes it sound like it's going to do some form of knock. And then on top of that as well, like we talked about earlier, Omnissiah's Fury, shots set enemies on fire. One thing that Burn does is when it actually stacks up enough to set them on fire, that also does a stagger. So you might have a really good point. It might keep crowds of enemies under control, depending on how the AI does its targeting and things like that. But yeah, it's I hadn't thought about that going into this.
Yeah. No, the precision enhancement I think sounds really cool because it could just be an absolute boss beamer and it can just like melt through things, which would be really cool. But I like explosions, so I like the plasma enhancement as well. You never go wrong with an explosion. One of the things that is a bit of a shame, in my opinion, I kind of hoped to see it as one of the prestige perks, but in Legends Techmarines, so Techmarines that you can't legally play in official tournaments anymore, they used to be able to bring a field generator, which was like a small personal fitting like shield. I thought that they might add it as a possible like upgrade on the Sentry, maybe, but we haven't seen that. I still think that they might let you have like a Sentry loadout system so you can change the weapon the Sentry has, maybe, because again on tabletop, Sentry guns, the Tarantula Sentry guns have like 6 weapons you can pick from when you build them. So it would be cool if you could even just like swap them from a heavy bolter to like a flamer perhaps, and just have like an insanely hazardous flaming Sentry spinning around.
That'd be pretty funny if you played it with like attack and a heavy, all using flamers.
Yeah, but like I'm unsure if they would do that. I don't know if it's just going to have like a random gun loadout or if it's just going to be heavy bolter like we see in these videos, but yeah.
Something tells me it's just going to be a Daka machine.
Yeah.
But we can always be hopeful.
Yeah. I feel like when I look into things like this and I get excited about something, it's like, oh, look at all these possibilities it could have. Mm-hmm. But then like when you think about it and you think about the people who have to like code it, it's like, no, it's just going to be a heavy bolter.
That's kind of how we felt about the Servo Arms Gunstrike thing. We thought, oh, that's like a pipe dream. There's no way it'll work like that. That would be a nightmare to code first and foremost. Nothing in the game has really deviated from its core mechanics since they started. But watching that example gameplay earlier, it looks like it works amazing. It just does a gun strike whilst you're doing your thing. And I don't think people understand yet how pleasant that's going to open up the gameplay. So I don't know. I think they've, with that side of things, they've cooked and surprised. So I'm going to give them credit where it's due, for sure.
Yeah. And then thinking about the servo arm as well, in game, you can melee with the servo arm, and it has like similar stats to a thunder hammer. And I was wondering if it was going to do some sort of like auto melee or some sort of like pushback kind of crowd control around your character. It doesn't seem to do that, but it does in these execute videos. You can like it is used and it looks absolutely amazing. So I'm not super mad about it not being able to melee otherwise. It would be cool if it had like a little push and it could just do a little push of people away, like a little shove. But I'm happy with the executes. They look really well done.
It would have been interesting if they made the servo arm do your parries or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The execute animations we saw earlier look super cool. Yeah. I can't wait to see like the other ones. I'm especially hoping they've got a special one for the Enlightened Sangors because they tend to do insane animations with those for some reason. They just always cook. So yeah.
I mean, the one in the video is just a Majoris Tyrannid Warrior, right? So it would be interesting to see on the other like forms of enemies. Yeah. So how do you think Techmarine will synergize with other classes? Like, how well do you think they will work together and build on each other, like perks wise and like ability wise and that kind of thing?
So there is one class that it's almost definitely going to synergize with incredibly well for two reasons, and that's tack. So as you might have noticed, the Techmarine has a lot, like more perks than any class centered around equipment. You've got explosive, enfilade. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but your range damage increases after just using the equipment. You don't even have to hit. There's 20% extra damage. There's a prestige for 15% extra range. You've obviously got the servo gun killing things gives you recharge. You have the team perk that lets other people take an additional charge, and you've got methodical destruction. Enemies hit by your equipment take 25% more damage. I think that with Tack's secure stockpile and the fact that Techmarine itself has a bunch of damage multipliers, then some of which I just mentioned, and then there are other ones beyond that. I have a feeling that Tack and Techmarine together, both being like the only real force multipliers classes, I think they have the capacity to kind of break the game a little bit. I think they're going to synergize incredibly well. I don't really see any other classes synergizing with it remotely as much.
I'm a mainly sniper player, so that's very sad for me. But I do understand the power of the Auspex. Like, I've seen it in operations where people just chuck it at the Helldrake and the Helldrake just melts instantly, and it's like, what? How? Yeah, it's mad. But yeah.
It's like 3 different perks you can buff your Auspex with to give it like 255% damage taken increase overall. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then imagine that with the Techmarine damage modifiers, like you said, that would just be literally insane melting power. Like, just silly at that point.
It'll depend entirely how they implement those damage sensitivities, because there's not to rag on the way they've designed the game, but there's multiple different ways that they apply damage buffs and damage resistances. As some of them are stronger than others, we'll say that. For example, anything that increases your melee damage done generally doesn't actually do it by as much as it says, but anything that says an enemy takes X amount more melee damage, those usually work exactly how they say. So it is entirely going to depend on how they've coded these in. They have the capacity to be game breaking. They could make things actually die in like one bullet if they've really messed it up.
Talking of bullets, how do you feel about the weapons? We have a full list now of all of the weapons that are able to be used by the Techmarine. It's a lot of weapons. I think they have like the most choices of each type, like primary, secondary, melee, out of all of the classes. Like, I don't think any of the other classes has like 5 primary, 5 secondary, and like 4 melee. Like, that's a lot. It makes sense with tabletop. They can basically take anything. It's a bit sad that there isn't a grav pistol. I was kind of hyping myself for a grav pistol because like the Techmarine, its default loadout comes with a grav pistol, so it's like, why would you not put that in? But
grav pistol sounds like something that's it sounds like something that would be close range and do a lot of like widespread damage, because Techmarine's supposedly meant to be short to medium range specialized, right? So if it's like a shotgun type thing, then it would have fed into it perfectly.
It is a more AoE weapon, so maybe they just didn't see the need for it because we already have the Inferno pistol, which is kind of like the pistol version of the melter. But I would have really liked to see that. Everyone loves the grav pistol.
Yeah, there's a few things. The secondary pistols are probably the secondary weapons are probably the part that I'm least interested in, especially considering you no longer gunstrike with them, which is well, actually interesting. But the melee weapons, Omnissiah Axe is going to be super fun to firstly check out its perk tree, and secondly see how its moveset comes together and how changeable it is, because that seems like a gunstrike generating machine based off the gameplay.
It looked very good in the videos because it had that in the Xbox post the other day, it did say that it had a really good cleave. And we did see that in this video. And it also has this kind of running forward in a line like you're a medieval knight, like joust. Yeah, exactly. Just like charging at things. Like, I'm very interested in see its perks, because I imagine there is like, so in the perks in Space Marine you have like the top row and the bottom row, right? And you can kind of ladder your way through. I wonder if the top row will be more cleave based, and then like the second row will be more like the charging at things based. That would be quite cool.
Yeah, be interesting to see what they sort of emphasize with it. It's going to be interesting as well because the power axe they've given to the Techmarine. Now, the power axe is probably balanced one with that. That's going to do a bit more damage than the fencing. You'll be able to get a perfect parry, do the power wave backstep, into an overhead whilst gun striking in the middle of it, that's going to be enough to kill every Majoris. Just outright, one single counter will kill them all, even without any weapon modifiers. So that's a really strong melee weapon for them to give. I was a little surprised by that. For the primary weapons, you've got the plasma incinerator. That's good. The bolt rifle is the one that sticks out the most to me because it's the only other class that's going to be able to use the grenade launcher. And if we're talking Siege, grenade launcher has stood the test of time. So having 2 characters with that could be, again, game breaking. Bosses could absolutely evaporate.
I am a little disappointed that there isn't a thunder hammer in the melee, because they can wield a thunder hammer. They, like, on tabletop, they are known for taking thunder hammers, and you can't really make the argument of like, oh well, it's two-handed, so you wouldn't be able to take a primary weapon. The Omniscient Axe is a halberd. It is also two-handed, so it wouldn't really take that away, but I can see how it would make people maybe stop playing Assault, because you also do get a primary weapon with
Heresy.
the hammer. I know.
Inquisitor, that one there.
I know. Imagine.
Yeah. I don't know, the part of what makes the hammer so strong on Assault is the fact that it's the strongest way to use ground pound. So I don't know why they didn't add it. Maybe they just wanted more people to use the Omniscient Axe. But no, it's an interesting point. I actually thought that they were going to have Thunder Hammer on it. So good point.
It's also because like the servo arm in tabletop is essentially Thunder Hammer stats. So if they aren't going to have the servo arm in Space Marine 2 being some sort of melee attack, then they would give him the option of a thunder hammer, but they just haven't. It's a bit sad. It's a bit sad. But like I said, like in Assault, you can't take a primary. Like you have a massive melee weapon, you have a pistol, and you can't take a primary weapon. So I guess if you did have that overlap, then I understand why they wouldn't take it, because then it's essentially turning Techmarine into a slightly better armed Assault, but without a jetpack.
Yeah, because even Bulwark, the other class that can use the Thunder Hammer, also doesn't have a primary. So maybe that's why, actually. It's a good point.
Yeah, alright. So, any things from on your wish list that you want to see in PTS? Obviously, we've seen the gameplay now, we've seen the perk trees, we haven't seen the weapon perk trees, but we have seen the majority of what Techmarine can do now from this post today. Is there anything that you would like extra, or anything that you would ask of Saber, potentially, in terms of like acting on things from PTS, and whether they do things based on PTS previously? I was not around for last PTS, so I'm unsure if they actually like take things in from that, or if it's just like an early access type thing. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, the whole point is called a public test server, right? That I think the idea behind them isn't to push their content, it's to find the issues. So that is the top of my list for things that I'd on a wish list, is that any bugs or things that they find, just what I expect problems to be is stuff like damage modifiers doing way less than they expect, like the 25% extra range damage after X only giving like 5%. Stuff like that has happened in the past. I hope things like that get fixed, they get identified and then fixed before the patch goes live. So I hope they listen to the feedback that they get and are able to, they put the resources into acting on it. In terms of the class itself, the only thing, they've already surpassed my expectations with the servo gun. I think that just looks amazing. I can't wait to play it. The only thing I kind of hope is that the prestige perks get another look, because I can't imagine perks being the hardest thing to code into the game. They're a little lackluster.
Yeah, it seems strange that 4 out of 7 of them are just copy pastas. That seems a little cheap.
With a rename for some reason.
Yeah, like the other ones that share the same perk, like Resilience, is named Resilience for both TAC and Bulwark. Like, they didn't rename it for those. Why have they renamed it for? They like it just feels sneaky. Like they're like, oh, this isn't a copy paste. It's called something else. No one will notice if we just change the name.
Yeah. But overall, even though I'm excited because it's a lot of stuff that increases other damage, like the perks system itself kind of works how I would have expected Vanguard to work, in that you're being like a hybrid on damage. So like melee would enhance your range damage would enhance your melee, etc. Techmarine does a lot of that. So on one hand, it's going to lead to like these interesting playstyles, but I understand a few people have critiqued it, saying it's a bit lazy, how a lot of the perks are basically just mirrors of each other with a different like style of damage for each variable. So yeah, maybe some spicing up on the perk tree, but this is their first rendition. I got to give them credit so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it says also on the video that they said that it is work in progress. It is liable to change for patch 12. So we will see. Well,
Nice.
I think that is all of my questions. That is everything I wanted to talk about. Everyone should go follow and sub and like everything that Hazeman does.
Oh my god, that's so nice.
And obviously sub to me as well. And I hope you enjoyed this little yap.
Bye-bye.
See ya.